How an ex 10 years after member inspired the title for a brand new album that's going to be released March 19th. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. The brand new 10 Years After album is called A Sting in the Tail. It's going to be released on March 19th. I've had a chance to listen to it. There is not a bad track off it. If you're a fan of the band or a fan of the classic rock sound, there are some groups that don't have it anymore. 10 Years After? Man, I know Alvin Lee is long past, but I highly recommend this album. And in this series, we'll be talking about specific songs, and we'll also have a feature on it on March 19th on our sister site, Rock History Book. Was that Leo's? That was based on what Leo had said in an interview, basically the title of this one?
What, a sting in the tail?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened was when Leo and Joe decided to leave, and Chick and I we weren't sure what we were going to do actually at that point. But yeah, Leo was interviewed, I think, somewhere. It's probably on the internet. I don't know. I've never actually read it, but it was Chick had seen it. And he said, "Have you seen what he said?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, he said that, you know, the way it was going, it was becoming that, like, you know, 10 years after the dog, the tail was wagging the dog, which he meant that, like, Chick and I were calling the shots, and he and Joe were you know, we were the tail, and he and Joe were the dog." So when we were discussing, I said to them, we were in the wagon on tour in Europe, and I said, "Listen, guys, we've got to get a name for this album because the agency wants to put out some details for the next tour. We need to know what the album's called because it'll be out by then, and we'll be promoting it." So we're going around and say, "Oh God, what do we call it? I don't know." And Colin said, "Well, it's obvious. We call it Sting in the Tail." So, hey, that's good. We like that. Yeah. Marcus said, "Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure." I said, "Well, look, go away and get sure, and you have to let me know by Tuesday next week at the latest," or whatever it was. So he came back and he said, "Yeah, okay, I've agreed it. I'm happy with that." And when he wrote to me, he wrote A Sting in the Tail, T-A-L-E, whereas we'd been thinking T-A-I-L, as in the dog's tail. And then we thought, hey, well, that's rather good, you know, as a sting in the actual story, if you like. And it's, in a sense, that's what it became, because the most of the material were, well, the best way to describe it is when I first started writing with Marcus, he said, "You know, it's amazing." He said, "I'm working with this young guy who's he's in his late teens, early 20s. He's had a minor hit record, and the record company have asked me to work with him to try and get some decent material together for an album." He said, "And we got together the other morning." I said, "Okay, so what are we doing? What are we writing about?" And the guy said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Well, have you got any ideas?" He said, "No, not really." He said, "Well, what do you think about?" He said, "Well, I don't really think about anything." He said, "Well, have you got any stories?" He said, "Well, no, not really." And he said, the amazing thing was when he sat down with me and then Colin and Chick, he said, "You know, what are we going to write about?" You know, and the first time I went, I said, "Well, I've got these two lyric lines I thought might work, you know, which was Surround, Surround, I Want to Be Your Man," which was one of the first tracks we did. And he said, "Oh, wow, that's great. Yeah, let's go for that." So we worked on that and finished that off. And then another time I turned up, because he was in London and I live up near Manchester. And so I was traveling down by train to it. And when I was on the train, I'd probably be jotting a few ideas or whatever. And I got there. He said, "What are you doing? Has you got any ideas for today?" I said, "Well, no, really, I'm struggling a bit." So he said, "Well, what have you been up to?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I've been on a lot of trains and buses." And he said, "Oh, okay." So that was it. And then I was sparked as well. And so I started writing a line, and it's in Stoned Alone. It's about a man traveling on a bus. But he doesn't get off at his bus stop because he doesn't actually want to go home because, and it was me at the time. I was living alone, and you know, he didn't want to be there and be alone, and so it was like he was stoned alone. He had nothing else. Now, it was interesting because Marcus then took it the other way. It's like, well, it's not a good idea to be smoking wacky backy and being alone. It's a sort of social idea. So you got that mix, and that just got all the juices going to write the songs.
But this project to me, I mean, it fits right in with everything, and it's like you said, it's accessible.
Well, that's what we tried to make it. Yeah, as I said earlier, you know, a lot of the TYA stuff in the past, actually, in a funny sort of way, didn't translate well to recording because you've not got the live atmosphere of a gig where everybody's playing off each other, and that's what the audience could really get into. You know, I mean, those days at the Fillmore East, for instance, you know, when everybody's, you know, the minute the safety curtain went up and all the gear was pushed out, you were rolled out on. I was sitting on a drum kit as I was rolled out to the front, and then it came down. I mean, the heat from it and the smell of the dope was just ridiculous, you know. and so that was what 10 years after, in a sense, was all about, was that on stage communication with one another, and that then fed to the audience, and the audience got on that, and then the audience would spur us on to further, I think, to further heights, you know, because we played off the audience so much. Whereas that, when you put that on record, it doesn't matter what you do, how much audience you can put on the tracks, it's not going to give you that same experience, you know. So that was a problem for TYA with its recordings, to be honest, in the past.
A Sting in the Tail is the name of the brand new 10 Years After album. It'll be released on March 19th. And Ric Lee has a brand new book called Headstocks to Woodstock. There'll be links in the description of this video. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our video. We'll have more from Ric Lee in a few days. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music.